Alright, so today I'm going to be tying a little extended body mayfly emerger. And this is a really simple pattern when it comes to emergers because it doesn't use a detached body to form the extended body, which means that all the tying is done directly on the hook shank and there's no need for a tying needle or anything like that. So it's a great pattern for beginners to start experimenting with extended body type patterns. And it's fairly realistic to how a mayfly looks. It's a very presentable pattern when you're showing it to people because it looks pretty good. It looks great there in the vise. And it's easy to tie. It's a lot of fun to tie. And I've been tying a lot of these. And I don't live in trout areas, but I can imagine this is a pretty solid trout pattern. So let's get tying. The materials you'll need for this fly are deer hair. And I use this roe deer body hair, which has a nice color to it. And then for the hook, I use a size, I think this is a size 14. Yeah, this is 14. And I use a curved hook because I think it goes well with the extended body, like what I have here. And then for the body, I use this little metal wire. And I believe this is like an iron or lead wire, but it works well because you can mold the shape of the body just by bending it, and you don't have to bring anything off the hook shank. For the thread, I use this Superfly Pale Morning Dun 6/0 thread, and I like this color a lot for tying this fly because it goes well with sulphur mayflies, which there's a lot of these hatching around May and June. And then the body is simply made of a yellow dubbing, and the wing is sheep's wool. I prefer wool for the wing over any other synthetic materials or anything because it traps bubbles the way an emerger in the surface film would, so it gives it that extra appearance of realism in the water. I start my thread base behind the eye of the hook and bring it to around where the point of the hook is at, and now I want to take my wire. Now the best reference I could find online for tying extended body flies without using a needle or anything was using monofilament fishing line, which while it is a smart idea, I prefer using this wire as the core of the body because you can bend it into the shape that you prefer. I do bring this a little bit back, probably to around where the point of the hook would be. And then I do prefer to lay down a thread base on here, which is fairly easy, as you can see. You can bend it around, so if you want it to be straight up, and tie it just like that, which is a bit quicker, but it might swing around a bit. You can do that. Once I tie that thread base, I just slowly come down back to the base. And now I can begin this fly. Now that I have the body set up, I want to take a bit of deer hair, and I'm just going to trim about this much off to form the tail. And the tail might look a little wild at first. Might look not very neat, but it gets organized pretty quickly once you bring your thread up along the tail again. I put my hair in the stacker like this, and when I remove it, the tips are perfectly aligned to how I want them. Now that I have this here, I like to lay this down and have the tips extend to about twice the total length of the wire. And now I take a few tight wraps to tie that down. I trim all this out. And you can see this is where the deer hair on the tail looks a bit disorganized and wild. But this is where we even it out. So what I do here is I bring the wires to a straight angle. And I begin taking wraps up it to secure the deer hair to it in an organized fashion. See, as we go up it, it gets a nice and organized appearance like it should. And then I just continue bringing my thread back down it. At this point, you can see we have something that looks like this. And you can see the extended body is getting nice and long, just how we want it. So now I'm actually going to come back up the body, and I'm going to begin laying dubbing on it. So I just like to have it down here, my thread, because I can just unwind it one wrap and have it right back up at the top. And I prefer to start at the top as opposed to the bottom, so I don't have to do multiple layers of dubbing. You can also just leave a bit of thread between where your dubbing starts and where your hook shank is. I want a really nice and thin dubbing noodle for this, so I just get it a bit longer because you don't even want the body to be that thick dubbing wise. You want this to be a fairly low profile fly. See, now that I'm back at the top and I'm at my dubbing, I'll begin wrapping down. You can see sometimes the thread will come undone, so I just like to tighten up my thread a little on this, because you don't want that much thread coming out of your bobbin while you're tying this. And you can just use a finger for that first wrap or two. Alright, perfect. So you see, now we have the extended body exactly how we want it. And you can't see it too well, so I might scoot this. But the deer hair on the tail looks quite good. And I did leave a bit of the bare thread area so that it just has that nice little alignment to it. And it looks pretty nice right now. Now I'm going to continue with the dubbing. And I'm just going to work on down the shank of the hook. Just keep on bringing it down. Maybe give it a bit of a taper. But it doesn't matter too much with this. This fly can be tied however you like in your own style. Now I take a bit of this sheep's wool and I fold it over itself to make it a bit thicker, like so. Now I'm going to tie it down. I'm actually going to trim it squared before I begin tying, because you can see here the fibers to the stuff are incredibly long and tangled up. So it's not that fun to work with when it's not at least a little more neater than it was when you plucked it from the bunch. I'm going to tightly secure this to the hook and then trim the excess at a slight angle to tie it down. And now I can trim the wing. The proportions I look for when tying this is I simply stretch this back to around where the dubbing on the tail ends, and I trim right there, and then I use this as my guidelines. See, I think this looks pretty good because mayflies have larger wings, but really, again, the profile with this fly is a matter of your choice, and I actually am going to trim this down a little bit. So you see, that's about where I like it. It's just like that, to where it stretches right to there. Now I'm going to get my sulphur yellow dubbing back on. And I'm just going to make this a bit neater along the front end of the fly. And you don't really want much buildup of a head on this fly, because you're not really shooting for... It's hard to explain. You don't really want, like, the head to even it all out. You want the dubbing at the front to even it all out. The dubbing at the front sort of acts like a head, and you just really keep the thread there so you can whip finish. Now at this point I can do my 5 or 6 turn whip finish, and then I can break my thread. And you see here, this is a nice looking pattern. I like it a lot because it imitates an emerging sulphur mayfly, which brook trout feed heavily on, mainly brook trout, but also rainbows and browns. So really, all trout feed pretty heavily on this, and it's a big hatch in May and June. So I recommend fishing this fly right about now in your local trout waters. So yeah, tie a few of these up and give it a try if you want to. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this, and comment any of your thoughts on this video. I will take constructive criticism on this video because I'm always looking to learn how I can improve my videos and my fly's presentability to you guys. And yeah, that's about it for this video, so thank you for watching.